It was a cold, moonless night when Sarah, Tom, Emily, and Jack decided to explore the infamous Whispering Woods. The forest had a reputation for being haunted, a place where people vanished without a trace, their whispers said to linger among the trees forever. None of them truly believed in ghosts, but the allure of an unsolved mystery was too much to resist. The deeper they ventured into the woods, the more unsettling the atmosphere became. The trees stood tall and menacing, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Every step they took was accompanied by the soft crunch of dried leaves underfoot. But soon, the sound was drowned out by something else. A faint, almost imperceptible whispering. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "It's just the wind," Tom replied, though he didn't sound convinced. But as they pressed on, the whispers grew louder, clearer. It wasn't the wind. It was voices, dozens of them, murmuring incoherently as if they were coming from all around them, yet nowhere at the same time. Panic began to set in, but they couldn't turn back now. The woods seemed to have a mind of their own, drawing them further in. They reached an ancient oak tree, its bark blackened as though it had been scorched by some long-forgotten fire. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, glowing faintly in the dark. There was a small clearing around the tree, and in the center stood a dilapidated cabin, its windows dark and empty like soulless eyes. "Let's check it out," Jack suggested, always the fearless one. Reluctantly, they followed him. The cabin door creaked as they pushed it open, revealing a room thick with dust and decay. Broken furniture lay scattered across the floor, and the air smelled of damp rot. But the moment they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them, trapping them in complete darkness. Sarah fumbled for her flashlight, and when she turned it on, they gasped in horror. Written on the walls, in what looked like dried blood, were the same symbols they had seen on the tree outside. In the center of the room was a circle, drawn with more of the blood-like substance, and in the middle of the circle lay something, a small, leather-bound book. Tom picked it up, despite Sarah's protests. The moment he opened it, a violent gust of wind swept through the cabin, extinguishing the flashlight and plunging them into blackness once more. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent this time, filling their minds with an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, they weren't alone. In the corner of the room stood a figure, tall, gaunt, its face obscured by shadows. Its eyes, glowing faintly red, fixed on them, and slowly it began to move toward them. "Run!" Jack screamed, but the door wouldn't budge. Desperation took over, and they backed into a corner, huddling together as the figure drew nearer. The whispers had become deafening now, echoing their fears and filling their heads with chilling promises of death. Tom, still clutching the book, realized it was the key. "We have to use it!" he shouted, frantically flipping through the pages. But just as he was about to read aloud from the book, the figure lunged at them. Emily screamed as it grabbed her, pulling her into the shadows. They could hear her shrieks, muffled by the whispers, but couldn't see her anymore. Without thinking, Tom began reciting the words from the book. The symbols on the walls started to glow, pulsating with a strange, otherworldly energy. The figure paused, its grip loosening on Emily for just a moment. That's when Jack saw it, a hidden trap door beneath the floorboards. "Over here!" he shouted, pulling it open. One by one, they scrambled down into the dark passage below, Emily barely escaping the figure's grasp as they slammed the trap door shut behind them. They were in a tunnel now, damp and narrow, with only the faint light from Tom's phone to guide them. The whispers were quieter here, but still present, as though the forest itself was alive, watching their every move. "I can't believe this is happening," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "We need to keep moving," Jack urged. "Whatever that thing is, it's not going to stop." The tunnel twisted and turned, leading them deeper underground. The air grew colder, and the walls were slick with moisture. Eventually, they came to a fork. 2 tunnels, one leading left and the other right. Neither looked promising, but they had no choice. "Which way?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Before anyone could decide, a sound echoed from the tunnel on the left. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming toward them. Without hesitation, they bolted down the right tunnel, their hearts pounding in their chests. But no matter how fast they ran, the footsteps seemed to be getting closer. And the whispers were rising again, filling the tunnel with their maddening chorus. The walls began to close in, the ceiling lowering as if the forest above was trying to swallow them whole. Just as they thought they couldn't go any further, they burst into a vast underground chamber. In the center stood a stone altar, and upon it lay a body, decayed, its skin stretched tight over its bones. Around the altar, figures in tattered cloaks chanted in an ancient language, their faces hidden beneath hoods. The whispers grew louder still, but this time they could understand them. "Join us. Join us." The figures turned toward them, revealing hollow eyes and gaping mouths. The door behind them slammed shut once more, sealing their fate. Tom held the book tighter, frantically flipping through the pages. There has to be something in here, something to stop this. But it was too late. The figures began to close in, their skeletal hands reaching out. One by one, they felt the cold touch of death as the whispers consumed them, their screams blending into the eternal chorus that haunted the whispering woods.